This is Stan Pottinger's registered base of operation. Okay, this is public knowledge, searchable through the internet. I gotta say that just before I reveal it, because obviously there's reasons why you would say that normally that would be, but this is about, we're going to be talking not about Stanley Pottinger himself and where he lives, but we're talking about Stanley Pottinger and where he registers certain companies from eventually, which is this house, 49 Twin Lakes Road. In fact, his son lives next door in a house, and he owns another house, or at least did own another house, 168 or something like that. I can't remember one, but on the same road. So this is extremely interesting. This was purchased. I'll be able to show you. This is the Mount Vernon Argus. I love the names of papers from abroad, from anywhere. 20th of August, 1989. It's a Sunday. We're on page 93, Lewisboro. And here we see Twin Lakes Road, South Salem, sold by Robert Fox to Stanley Pottinger of New York City for $675,000, which is quite a bit of money back in 1989. But Stanley Pottinger had been an investment banker sharing a desk with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, he smuggled guns and arms to Iran for the CIA, and he had successfully got Bush and Reagan elected in the White House. I'm sure that probably pays well.
It certainly pays for a house at Twin Lakes Road.
Certainly does. Certainly, and eventually pays for a couple of houses on Twin Lake Road. How about three? Let's have three. Let's keep going. But why not? We have another house too. We'll have another house. 1990, the following year, he spends $2.5 million. Now, how much is that?
Can $3.25 million in a year on two properties. And he just got this money laying around, does he?
Just laying around. Well, in a sense, his father was an insurance man who owned John Pottinger Insurance, so he must have had some money inherited, and he probably invested it quite well. But I would say working for the CIA, you're likely to get loads of different opportunities. Stan's always, as we'll learn later, Stan, even up to the past few years, has been looking for opportunities to make big money. So this is called Long Cabbage Home, sells for $2.5 million. My holy hell in a handbag. I cannot tell you how finding this, I didn't expect to find that Stanley Pottinger had lived in Palm Beach. Just did not expect it. Did not expect it at all. It was a shock for me because I hadn't heard that at all in any of the things I had read, and I hadn't noticed it anywhere, and I hadn't come across any of the databases I looked at until I looked closer later and then discovered the whole family had lived there. And this is buying in the Long Cabbage Island subdivision, and I couldn't find the Long Cabbage Island. I don't think it's called Long Cabbage Island. I don't think they liked it. There's a place called Cabbage Island in Florida. That's not in Palm Beach, just like outside Palm Beach by a while. But I couldn't find Long Cabbage Island, so I was really confused. The 616 Island Drive, and I had to confirm it. Gregory and Janice Holloway sold it. Financed were the sellers, and financed to sale with $500,000 purchase money mortgage. I don't know what that means. The home was built in 1954. Indeed, all of the homes in the area were built in 1954, including Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach house. Right. Okay, so I want to explain something to people there. We're talking about El Brillo Way, and we're talking about Stan Pottinger, and Stan Pottinger is in 616 Island Drive. So we know that here we are, El Brillo Way. This here, we're on Google Earth, of course, and it's showing us Jeffrey Epstein's mansion that's in El Brillo Way. You'll notice Tarpon Island there too. Do you see Tarpon Island? The guy who owns Tarpon Island, I can't remember his name. Oh, well, it's always like that. I get a feeling it's Damien something or Darren something. Anyway, he is the one who buys Jeffrey Epstein's house a few years back, and demolishes it and has it rebuilt, and sells it on. So that's the guy who owns Tarpon Island there. This one by here. Over here, it's about here, I think, is Stanley Pottinger's house. Is the Island Drive. And from between, as you see, the scale 100 meters. Can you see that?
Yeah, so it's literally like...
It's about 500 meters.
Wow.
And I think I've measured it out 500 meters from Jeffrey Epstein's house to Stanley Pottinger's house.
So they're basically neighbours.
Basically neighbors, yes, in many different ways. This is Jeffrey Epstein's El Brillo Way mansion here. This was designed by a guy called John Volk. This is some interesting stuff. We'll get to this. Give me just one moment. Ooh, see what I got. I'm missing something.
It's funny seeing that Google Earth view of like all the mansions, because they were kind of like really not stacked on top of each other, but very sort of squeezed in. But they're all so huge.
Yeah.
It's just like a billionaire's playground. Like,
well, look at how Palm Beach works.
Mm.
This is all down here.
Wow.
It is all big mansions, and this central bit by here is where all of the rich folk live. So you can see how it is.
terrible if there was a big flood right there.
Oh, would it be? Is terrible the word? But that's where this House of Horror was. That's where his House of Horror was. I mean, it can't. If you go down, I think it's about here is. By here is around where the Kennedys resort is as well, where Robert F. Kennedy and other people, Jr. were, and they would visit. He was a visitor to Epstein's house as well.
It does make me laugh as well, like whether it's the Clintons or like Obama or any of these people like that bang on about climate change and rising sea levels and all this stuff, but they've always got like
beachfront mansions,
beachfront properties. That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, really peculiar. It's like that. It's almost like they don't want you going to the beach. It's almost like they don't want you surfing. Right, I'm going to close this now.
Skim.
Skim. It is a skim. It is a skim, most definitely. So as you see, Epstein, and we'll see more details of this. The same true for Epstein's beachfront property, 358. Sorry. El Brillo Way, which he bought for in 1990 for 2.5 million. 2.5 million. In actual fact, we can go back to 1990 and we can have a look at where in May 1990, Martha A. Gottfried, who represents a load of different, I think she represents more than her own agency, originally is doing an open house at El Brillo Way. And this is in the Palm Beach Daily News. We can also see that on March the 4th, 1990, on Palm Beach Daily News, there's another open house here. Here's one up there for El Brillo Way, but this is the one we want. Martha A. Gottfried, Inc., again, is trying to sell it, and she's having trouble selling it. Down here, though, is Stanley Pottinger's house, 616 Island Drive, which is also an open house in the same newspaper, being sold by the same people at the same time. So Stanley Pottinger and Jeffrey Epstein may have just been wandering around together, and they would have known each other. So maybe they would have said, "Hey, you buying a house in Palm Beach?" Yeah. Hey, Stan, how's it doing? I'm okay. You know, what are you doing, Stan? Oh, just covering up whatever I can find. What's that over there? It's a hole. I might go and cover it up. You know, can't stop myself. What are you doing, Jeff? Oh, well, I go around, you know, having massages and sexually assaulting. Oh, what's that?
Maybe you could come over to my house and cover some things up around of mine.
Yeah, maybe if you're done with those children, Jeff, I could put them in the hole like you want me to, because I'm sure that probably happened as well. I'm serious there. I'm probably, you know, it gets dark, some of this stuff. We're looking at stuff and we're having a good time. It's fun because we know the dynamics of it, and it's been worn out of our heads. But I'm sure there's other stuff. There's other stuff that we are to learn. But like I say, look at this. March 1990, there is open houses of El Brillo Way, Stanley Pottinger's future home that he's going to buy very soon, and Jeffrey Epstein's future home that he's going to buy very soon. And that's quite amazing. Actually, eventually, Martha Gottfried loses the contract to sell 358 El Brillo Way, and Sotheby's International Realty, which is, of course, attached to Sotheby's Auction House, where Les Wexner is one of the board members, alongside Taubman, who's one of the Mega Group guys. And here you go. There's down there is 358 El Brillo Way. This is Jeffrey Epstein's future house, lakefront contemporary. Kathy Shapiro is selling. Wonder if she's any relation to Ben. Unlikely. I reckon there's probably a lot of Shapiros around. But anyway, that would explain why Epstein got such a marked discount on it, because as you see down here, has it got a price on it down here? No, but they're selling it for about 3.25 million or something like that. He ends up getting it for 2.5 million. So that's that's one hell of a markdown. 750 grand. Yeah, that's something like that. So again, there's Sotheby's then selling it over here, and I'm sure Margaret A. Gottfried is probably still selling 616 Island Drive up here. So now they're separated. She's lost the contract to try and sell that. It's gone over to Sotheby's. Not a surprise. And there it is. It was actually 850,000, because it was 3,350,000 that it was. And demolition begins on Epstein's former Palm Beach property eventually. And there you go. Todd Michael Glaser. He's the guy who owns the house in the middle as well, the Tarpon Island one or whatever it's called. He buys it, and there's Jeff. He buys it and then has it pulled down, and Forbes write this meaningless. I mean, come on, how much do they pay this woman, Emma Reynolds, to write such a crap article? Look how small that is. It's barely anything. Yeah. There's loads of information you can write about that. I know that I'm writing like articles with like between 7,000 and 10,000 words, and that might be a bit daunting for some people, but that is pathetic, and these people get actually paid for what they do.
It said the article was older than 2 years old. I thought it actually said this article could be read by a 2-year-old, and I said, well, obviously there's nothing there.
I thought you were going to say this article has been written by a 2-year-old. It could be true, right? Paradise Island. I want to mention here quickly. Paradise Island was Hog Island once upon a time, and was bought by this man who I once wrote this article about this year. I think it was, when was it? March. So not that long ago. I wrote the original Jeffrey Epstein about the man who made Paradise Island and many other things, did lots of other things. And he was exactly into the same age range of girls, had intelligence links, house in Palm Beach, house in New York, house in London, house in Paris, all of the same things as Jeffrey Epstein, like mimicked his life, except he got away with all of his crimes. This guy, this is George Huntington Hartford II, who was an heir to the A&P grocery store fortune, which was the first ever chain grocery store in America. So you can imagine how much money they originally made from getting that, like being the first chain grocery store in America. But he was basically retarded. But what's interesting is that Paradise Island, the place where he actually created, was designed by John Volk, the same person who designed Jeffrey Epstein's home in Palm Beach. And I just found that fantastically interesting synchronicity again. There's lots of synchronicity within this piece.
I have to get him in to design all the network of underground tunnels and dungeons,
Yeah.
obviously.
Special soundproof holding cabinets for screaming children when the authorities come round. Yeah.
Well, you're talking about this guy keeping history alive. At the site he designed in Palm Beach, architect's life honored with the Volk Walk. So in Palm Beach, you can go on the Volk Walk because he actually designed thousands of houses, including many that are in Palm Beach. And you can go on a walk and look at all of his different architecture because there he is. But yeah, he was personally brought on board to design Huntington Hartford's Island, and he had designed Jeffrey Epstein's home too. But it had been built in 1954, so it's not like Jeffrey Epstein got him directly to do it. But it's very interesting that synchronicity exists. I like a bit of synchronicity. And 616 eventually that was sold off, and 616 Island Drive, which would also be sold for 2.5 million, were not so much of a markdown as you see, because it was being sold for 2,950,000, was also up for sale. Here is on the 27th of May, still up for sale, and here it is on the 22nd of July, where they have an open house between 2 and 4, and on that day Stanley Pottinger would walk in and buy the house directly that day. In actual fact, that can be basically proven by this entity that was created, a Florida profit corporation called Colt Communications Inc., which was registered, the date filed, it said, this is from a filing from 1990, and you'll see that on another filing, yeah, there you go. So the effective date, so even though the date filed was the 26th of July 1990, he backdated this corporation to have been registered there from the day that open house viewing had happened. So obviously that's the moment he bought the house. And here it is, 616 Island Drive, Palm Beach, Florida. And registered agent name of the place was this, and the director detail was J. Stanley Pottinger, address 616 Island Drive. So we know for sure he lived 500 meters away from Jeffrey Epstein. At the same time, Jeffrey Epstein moved in to his home, and Stanley Pottinger moved his family in there too.